This review will cover the case of Lost Boy Larry. On August 7th, 1973, uh, CB calls were put out by somebody named a youngster named whose name was Larry, and he was in a red and white pickup truck, and he was out hunting with his dad, and the truck went off the road, and his dad was potentially deceased, and the doors were jammed, and there was no way for him to get out. And he called out on the CB on several different CB channels, asking for help. And they described him as a youngster who sounded like he was indeed distressed. And the CB calls could be heard in California, New Mexico, Wyoming, as well as some other states, even in parts of Canada. And let me get a little different screen on here, and that's the area on the left. That's the circled area. That's the area that he could that could be heard from, and they assumed that the calls were coming from the mountains of New Mexico. That's where the signals seemed the strongest. So authorities, as well as some volunteers, went out to search for Larry, as well as his dad and their overturned pickup truck. And the story was picked up by radio stations, TV stations, even newspapers. And after a 5-day period, it was discontinued. However, during the course of the 5 days, the signal grew weaker and weaker, which is consistent with the battery draining. And the search was abandoned altogether after August 12th with no sign of the overturned pickup truck or Larry or his dad. And let me get a different screen on here. And here's an article about the case. And let me get that on. And the calls were originally picked up by a CB user in California, as this article states. And as time went forward, whether or not it was a hoax, or was there somebody out in the desert there in an overturned truck on a CB radio calling out for help, remains unclear. The authorities tend to think it is a hoax, but the people who actually talked to him via CB radio, they insist it was a legitimate youth in distress, and back then CB radios were starting to be put into cars as a means for communication. And as time went forward, there were never any answers. Nobody ever came forward and said that they had perpetuated the hoax. And till this day, this is known as Lost Boy Larry, the CB calls, and they're an unsolved mysteries. And the case is not really covered on television all that much. And I've never seen it on any shows that deal with unsolved mysteries. But if you go to Google search engine and just type up Lost Boy Larry, there's some information about it. And that should do it. Hopefully you've heard about this case before. It's a good flashback. If it's your first time, hopefully it's a quick and informative review. I try to get everything in here quick here. And let me get another screen on here. One moment, please.